Military families have incredible stories of perseverance while navigating frequent moves, deployments, food insecurity, transitioning out of the military, and more. This is the place for them to share those stories, highlighting unique experiences of military families. Welcome to the Professional Dependent Podcast. Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's Mike, your host for the Professional Dependent Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the podcast, please make sure you subscribe and like. Give us a comment. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me, listen to some of the other episodes, kind of leave comments and reviews on those. Let me know how you like the podcast. The Spotify Wrapped review thing just came out, and I was really, honestly humbled that I was in the top 10 podcast for so many people, and that I was top one. I was the number one podcast for like 5 people. Granted, I'm probably one of those 5, but to think that there's 4 other people out there that I'm the number one podcast for them, that absolutely blew me away. So very humbled, very grateful for that. Anyway, also check out the shop where you can get Professional Dependa podcast gear like this hoodie. I also have t-shirts and sweatshirts available. I don't know about y'all, but in Ohio it is cold and going to be colder. It's actually not even that cold today. It's like 40 degrees today, but it was 19 2 days ago. So anyway, this week's episode, now that we've gotten past all of that, this week's episode, we're going to talk about next year a little bit and what next year can look like for you. And the thing that we're going to talk about is goal setting. Goal set. Everybody loves to go into the new year with their New Year's resolutions, and that's wonderful. If those work for you, fantastic. But I know a lot of people that make New Year's resolutions out of habit, and then they struggle with them. This guy right here, one of those people. But goal setting and understanding how goal setting can actually work for you can help you achieve those New Year's resolutions and so much more. One of the easiest ways to start off with this is use a calendar, not a calendar on your phone. Oh, we have stickers. Not a calendar on your phone, an actual hard copy calendar. Why is that important? In my opinion, because you can sit down with your spouse, with your significant other, with other family members that you try to coordinate things with, and you can sit down together over FaceTime, face to face, whatever, over a Zoom call, and you can hash out easier with being like flipping a page and going, okay, I'm looking at November for next year. What does that look like for y'all? And that sounds crazy to me to think that I've got to start thinking a year ahead. But we're in an area in our life now where both of our children are heavily involved in extracurricular activities. And some of these activities are already scheduled out through March of the coming year, which, yeah, that's only 4 years. That's only 4 years. That's only 4 months into the year. 3 months. April, there's some of the stuff has April. There's one of them, I think one of them, no, they all end in April. That's not true. Yes, it is. One of them ends in April. So it's only, 3 to 4 months into the year. But if you're trying to think about, you know, anything to do coming out of the winter into the spring, if you don't have a calendar to do that scheduling, then you're going to miss something, or you're going to schedule something and it's not going to work out for you because you're going to get to the point where you're like, oh, I've already got this thing scheduled, not realizing that your kid had a thing, whatever that thing is, spelling bee, cross country meets, soccer, academic bowl, whatever. Or maybe they're in a play. I don't know. I bring that up because this time last year, my kids were in a play. It was phenomenal. Um, but goal setting and the scheduling of that will help you maintain your goals. Reason being is if you have a real, let's say I think the number one thing for in the world every year is people making a weight loss goal, right? Well, if you're not looking at a calendar and schedule and going through and scheduling out what things look like, what happens if you forgot you had a work trip, or you forgot you and your spouse had some big weekend getaway planned, or even like I was just talking about how my kids are involved in sports and after school activities and stuff. If I'm not looking at that calendar and I don't realize that, okay, I'm going to have to plan ahead on these different days to make sure that I can stay on task and keep my weight loss goal. We're just going to go with weight loss goal, right? Because that's what pretty much the bulk of people do for New Year's. They make a weight loss goal as their goal for the year. But if I don't plan for, oh, I'm going to be out of town this weekend, I'm going to be super busy that next weekend, and like have that in mind, then the day before I leave for whatever, if it's an out of state meet or a competition or whatever, I'm going to be behind the eight ball, and I'm not going to be able to stay on target because I didn't give myself the best chance to win. And I know some of y'all are probably thinking, well, Mike, you said you were going to talk about goal setting. Why are we talking about calendars and scheduling? That's how you keep, that's the easiest way to stay on your goal and hit your goal. You have to give yourself a way to win. And for me personally, and what I have found works for a lot of people that I've talked to, is having a schedule, having a calendar. And the beautiful thing is, once you go through with a hard copy calendar, if there's things you're trying to coordinate with other people, get Google Calendar. And this is what my family uses. We really like Google Calendar because each person, after we kind of go through and like hash things out with our actual planner, matter of fact, this is what I use right here, just a regular planner, and we go through and we hash out whatever our week looks like. My wife and I will sit down and we'll be like, okay, the girls have this on these days. I've got this on this day. You've got this thing on this day. And we plan out our week, because then I know ahead of time, okay, on Tuesday, I can't cook dinner because I have a thing. On Wednesday, you're going to be home late because you have a thing. So I need to make sure that everything is squared away as far as, getting the girls ready for bed, making sure that if I've meal prepped for the next day, I've got all that ahead of time. That's how scheduling can help you achieve your goal. And it's a super simple thing that so many people overlook, but it is, to me, an invaluable tool. It has helped me a lot. I know whenever last year I set a goal for myself, whenever my wife deployed, that, okay, I was going to try to drop as much weight as possible in the 6 months she was gone. I did pretty good with that. I dropped like 45 pounds, I think 40 pounds. So I was super happy with that. And through sheer neglect and not putting myself first for a few months, I've gained some of that back. I haven't gained it all back, thankfully. But I have gained some of that back. So I'm going back on a little weight loss journey, if you will. It seems to be a yo-yo thing for me, which a lot of us struggle with. It's human nature. But it's also a lack of self-discipline on my part, because it would be so much easier once I got there just to keep that, but I get lazy. That's a me problem. So I'm working on that as well. That's going to be something that I work on for me. So, but look at that. Look at calendars. I'm telling you, if you haven't used a calendar or a family calendar before in trying to plan things out, it really might be a game changer for you, because it's so much easier to not feel rushed and not feel like you're caught off guard with things if you already schedule out as much as you can. Now, obviously, especially being military spouses, right? We can't plan out everything. We just can't. We always joke that we can't plan Christmas, a month out, because we don't know if my wife's going to get a TDY or short notice orders. We just never know. We can do our best, but we never know. That's why you try to schedule out as much as you can. And this year, I'm going to make an effort to schedule out as far as I can. I'm actually going to try to schedule out all the way with at least the things that I'm aware of and the things that we kind of want to look at. I'm going to do my best to schedule the entire year of known things. For example, our 20th anniversary is coming up next year. Super excited about that, because I feel like that's a gigantic accomplishment. I mean, to make it 20 years in a marriage, not a lot of people do that. I'm super proud of us. And I cannot wait to celebrate our 20th anniversary. So I'm going to try to at least schedule out till then, because we already have that planned, and then see how much further I can take it. See if I can go ahead and tentatively schedule, where are we going to be for Thanksgiving? Where are we going to be for Christmas? Where are we going to be for some of those holidays coming out of the summer into the first part of the school year? There's some things that we already know our girls are going to want to do in the first part of the school year because they wanted to do them this year. Chances are they're going to want to repeat that. So we're going to try to get that on the calendar. That way we can know, okay, well, what about birthdays? What about this? We're going to try to get that done. And I just really think that that's going to help us not feel rushed or not feel unprepared when those things come up. So give that a try. Let me know how that works out for you as you go into the new year. I'd be really surprised to see anybody say that scheduling did not help them stick to their goals better. So now we're going to get to actually the goal setting for the year. What I like to do, and what I've in talking to other people, what seems to work best, and this is something that's going to be hyper individualistic because everybody works a little bit different. I like to break things down into different sections. So I like to have short term, middle term, and long term goals. And where I think people get messed up, let's just go back to weight loss, right? People say, I want to lose 50 pounds. Great. That's a heck of a goal. 50 pounds is huge for anybody. But when they don't lose weight on a consistent basis, they get frustrated and they quit. Whereas if they break that down into sections, okay, so my long-term goal is to lose 50 pounds. Don't put a date on that. Because what's going to happen is you're going to crash diet and you're going to do like I have done in the past, and you're going to lose all that weight and then you're going to gain it back because you forced yourself to drop a bunch of weight, but you didn't do it in a way that was manageable. So if you were to break that down, and this is not a weight loss podcast, we're talking about goal setting. So if you take that big goal of losing 50 pounds and you break it into, okay, I want to lose initially 5 to 10 pounds in the first couple of months. And then, because what's going to happen is you're going to lose that first 5 pounds pretty quick. You are. Like if you actually stick to a diet where you're tracking things, be that macros, if you're doing one of the other keto, whatever plans, you're going to drop that first 5, maybe 10 pounds pretty daggum quick. And then your body's going to plateau because your body's going to be like, okay, cool. Now what? So that's when you have to start looking at that midterm plan of, okay, well, I'm going to start off by fixing my diet. I want to pay really close attention to my diet, and I'm going to start adding in other things. So you're like, okay, my short-term goal is stick to a diet plan for 4 weeks. That's a short-term goal that you can take in a small bite. After that, you can be like, okay, then you can start habit stacking, right? So you're like, okay, I've stuck to this goal for 4 weeks. I'm going to keep sticking to this goal. I'm going to maintain my momentum that I've already got. Now I'm going to start working out 3 times a week. Okay, cool. You've worked out 3 times a week for the first, let's just say for 4 weeks. Let's just break it down in months. All right, well, now I'm going to keep working out 3 times a week because I like the way my body's feeling. I'm going to start adding in some cardio. I'm going to run, 3 to 4 times a week. And I'm going to get, and this whole time you're like, I'm going to get 10,000 steps a day. So you're stacking these wins. Maybe you want to start journaling. So you're like, okay, I'm going to wake up 20 minutes early, and I'm going to, in that 20 minutes, I'm going to spend 5 of those minutes journaling. I'm going to be that gratitude, something you were grateful for, something that you're grateful for that day. You can stack these little wins. And if you stack them in small bites, then 3-4 months in, you're crushing it. And now your midterm goal of, okay, well, I'm 3 months in, I'm working out 3 times a week. I've maintained my eating habits. I'm tracking everything. So now if you're 3-4 months in and let's say you slip up, let's say, and I'm going to use slip up loosely. Let's say you're like, you know what? I'm 3 months in, I've lost some weight. I'm feeling really good. And now y'all go out to dinner and you're like, I really just want a cheeseburger. I want a cheeseburger and a beer and some ice cream. Okay. because now you've already got that habit stack. You've got all that stuff working for you. So if you have that cheeseburger and beer or pizza or whatever, let's say you go to the buffet and you load up on Chinese food. One meal isn't going to kill your progress. What's going to kill your progress is the mindset of, well, I've messed up, I've ruined it. No, you didn't. Do yourself a favor. Don't weigh yourself that next morning, but don't weigh yourself every day. Period. No matter I don't care what. Don't weigh yourself every day, unless you are a competitive bodybuilder. Once a week is fine. I will admit, whenever I was doing my my personal challenge when my wife was deployed, I was weighing every day, but it was more the way I could make sure I was staying on the right track. Because if you weigh every day, what happens is your weight fluctuates daily, depending on your level of fatigue, your level of water intake, how much salt you've consumed, how many carbs you've consumed. Your body weight fluctuates day to day. So if you weigh yourself daily, you're going to drive yourself crazy, especially if you are on my sinuses are killing me today for some reason. But especially if you're on like if you've got a really big goal, you might get on. See, Zoom does this thing where if you do a thumbs up now, it does a thumbs up. It's weird. It was kind of funny yesterday, but now it's kind of annoying. But anyway, so if you have a really big goal and you're weighing yourself every day, the problem is you'll see that number jump from one day to the next, and you'll either panic and you'll do something ridiculous that day, like either not eat or not eat enough. You'll be like, well, I'm going to eat 1,000 calories today. And that's not enough for hardly anybody. Or you're like, well, I'm only going to drink half of my water. Well, now the next day your body is, let's say the next day you see that number go down a little bit. You're like, well, what I did yesterday worked. So I'm going to repeat that today. Now you're sending yourself into starvation mode. So weigh yourself once a week. That's going to give you the best chance of actually seeing what's really happening with your body instead of weighing every day. Unless you're working with a coach and they tell you to weigh every day. But that's, again, personal preference. Don't forget to hydrate, people. I know it's the winter. Still got to drink. So then those midterm goals start becoming a little bit easier. And once you can get to that midterm goal of, okay, I've been logging my food, I'm journaling. Now you're really starting to see, okay, maybe if I have these little accidents every once in a while of not sticking to my food, now you see that it's not detrimental. Is it going to get you where you want to be as quick as it could? Probably not, but it's not going to hurt you as much as you thought. And then the long-term goals become more manageable because you've broken it down into, okay, well, I want to do this for this amount of time. My mid-range goal is going to be this, and the long-range goal, I'm going to get there because I've done it in small enough increments to where I'm not trying to break down a concrete wall with a ball peen hammer. Now you've got a crane because you've got all this momentum built up behind you, and you're going to smash through your goal because you broke it down into small chunks. Also, don't set some insane goal that you already know you're not going to do. Before you start setting goals, take a hard look at yourself and be like, what do I actually want? For myself, I said I want to write a book. I've already started writing it. So instead of saying I'm going to write a book and I want to write it in 3 months, probably not going to happen, because what's going to happen is you're going to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to write this book. You're going to sit down at your computer, go get ready to go, and then nothing's going to happen. But if you say, hey, I want to write a book and I'm going to set a personal goal of 200 to 500 words a day, that's relatively manageable. Even if you're sitting down at the computer and nothing's coming, you can write 200 words and then go back and edit it later if what you wrote doesn't make sense. But by setting that goal of 200 to 500 words a day, and it doesn't have to be a day. You can be like, I want to write 1,000 words a week or 500 words a week. That way you have, let's say you end up like I did the other day, I had to spend or yesterday, I had to spend all day in an appointment and I didn't have time to sit down and write the amount of words I wanted to write. So that's why I set it as like a weekly goal and not a daily goal. I try to sit down and write 200 words a day, but sometimes it doesn't happen because life gets in the way. I'm not a professional author. I have other, responsibilities that I have to take care of that sometimes prevent me from sitting down and writing 200 to 500 words. But I can do it over the course of a week, and it works out. So doing something like that, giving yourself grace to understand that something like writing a book is not easy, and understanding that it's going to be frustrating. And if you try to set yourself a goal of 3 months, well, is that 3 months for your rough draft or first draft? Does that 3 months include editing? Are you going to send it to somebody else to help edit? Are you going to try to self-publish or publish it with a company? So are you going to write your manuscript and then send it out for people? What type of book are you going to write? Have you ever written a book before? If you've never written a book before, I've never written a book before. So you break it down into smaller bite-sized increments. And again, you're building that momentum. As you get things written, don't go back and edit. Just keep writing until you're done, then go back and edit. But that if you tried to, because that's that breaking it down, right? If I give myself, okay, my short-term goal is X number of words a week. Once I finish, now my goal is, okay, now I'm going to give myself 6 weeks to edit. Because don't rush it thinking that, well, if I don't hurry up and do it, I'm going to lose interest. If it's truly something that interests you, take all the time you want. It's not like there's a time limit on your idea. And if you're like, well, somebody else is going to do it first, okay. I guarantee you that whatever you're doing, somebody else may have experienced it before, but they haven't experienced it the same way, and they didn't come out of it the same. So if you're writing something off of your personal experience, so be it. Let's say you want to get into photography and you go out and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this brand new camera that costs $2,000. And you're like, well, what if you started off smaller, and instead of buying some $2,000 camera, what if your goal was, hey, you know what? I really think I want to get in photography. I'm going to rent a camera that's really nice, and I'm going to rent it for a week. And I'm going to see how much would I actually use it over the course of a week. That could be your goal. Be like, hey, I've really enjoyed photography. I like taking pictures with my phone. Let's take it up a level. Let's rent a camera. You can rent almost anything between like what's cameras. Speaking just about cameras, you could rent a Nikon, you can rent a Canon, Sony, Fuji. I shoot Nikon, so I'm actually getting ready to rent a camera because I wanted to get a new one, and I want to use it for sports photography because both of my kids are in sports. So I'm renting a camera. I'm even renting a lens that I would like to purchase to see if it's actually going to work for me. So my goal is to buy a new camera, right? That's my big goal. So to make sure that I'm making the right purchase, the small part of that is, hey, I'm going to rent it and see if it's going to work for me. Because if it doesn't work for me, okay, I'm out like $200, which yes, $200 is a lot of money, but it's better than spending, let's just say $2,000 on a camera and lens. And then you get it and you're like, this is not for me. Because what happens if I rent the camera and I'm like, oh, I don't like the way these buttons are situated. It feels weird in my hands because I'm used to shooting a different camera. So I'm giving myself about 5 days to shoot it with this different lens. And if it doesn't work, cool, I'm out $200. That sucks, but it's better than being out $2,000, right? I mean, to me, that's math I can do. I'd rather be out 10% of it than be out 100%. And now I have an opportunity to maybe try something else. Maybe if you're like, well, I have a camera already, I want to learn how to use it better. I guarantee you, if you're a military spouse, there is a military spouse photographer near you. And if you said, hey, I'm really starting to get into photography, I've got a camera, would you mind helping me out? Buy them coffee. buy them a bottle of whiskey or whatever they're into, buy them candy, make it worth their while, pay them $50 to teach you how to use your camera. And if you're like, well, Mike, I don't want to pay somebody that much money to teach me how to use their camera, you're going to somebody that does it for a living as either a semi-pro or a professional photographer. I promise you, their time is going to be worth at least $50 to teach you how to do a thing. And that goes for anything. If you like to sew, I've got so many different things I'm into. I got into sewing a while back when I was selling dog bandanas and sewing. Got into sewing there, and I still enjoy it. I've made seat covers for our outside chairs. Getting ready to sew a big cushion for our window seat over here. I just got to order the foam. I've already got the fabrics. Got to order the foam to make it happen. But if there was something I was unsure of, I would either go take a class or find somebody and ask them. And if it was somebody that has been sewing for years, excuse me, at minimum, I'm going to offer to bring them something they enjoy, whether that be a baked good, a tip like a bottle of wine, a gift certificate to take their family out to eat, or cash. Or if, like I said, let's say, I'm trying to figure out learning how to sew something. I'm a decent photographer. I'm not great, but I'm pretty decent. If they're like, hey, you know what? I'd really like, I'm trying to take my sewing to the next level. I would really like some product shots and maybe some new headshots. Hey, you know what? Let's trade. I can do a thing. You can teach me a thing. Let's trade services. So you can use that kind of bartering system as part of your goal, or during part of your goal, to get to that next level, to help you get your goal set. Goal setting does not have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be, I want to climb Everest, because you're not going to climb Everest the first time. You might go climb Mount Rainier at the right time. At the right time of year, the average person could probably go climb Mount Rainier with little to no training at the right time of year. But there's a reason why they have markers on Everest called green boots, because a person died at that spot with green boots on, and they can't get them down. You have to set realistic goals. And look, don't get me wrong. Like, if you want to set a huge goal of, you know what, I'm going to start a company and it's going to retire me, you better make sure that you are going to set that goal far enough out to where it makes sense. And if you're like super gung-ho about it and you're going to put a lot of effort into it, understand that almost all of your favorite companies that are small businesses that you're like, oh, they're killing it. And I can name a couple right now that don't listen to my podcast, but I'm not going to name them. But understand, your favorite companies that are out there killing it were not killing it for like 10 years before you start seeing what you're seeing now of, oh man, that guy is crushing it. It must be nice. If you want to be one of the people that people say, it must be nice, you got to suffer for about 10 years. I can think of very few companies that are smaller businesses that didn't put in the work 5 to 10 years before all of a sudden everybody's like, oh man, look at that guy, look what he's got. They earned it. They absolutely earned it, because they put their work in. They stuck their nose to the grindstone for like 10 years. There is no magic button. There is no get rich quick. There is no magic pill to drop weight. You have to put in the work. And that is where most people, I think, with their goals, they fall short, is they have this lofty goal, this big ambition, but they're not willing to put in the work. And you can achieve your goal regardless of what that goal is, if you're willing to put in the work. So that's why I say take your goals, make them realistic, but break them up into smaller bite-sized chunks. Because if I said, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds, and the first time I saw either no weight change or a weight gain on the scale, if I didn't have the right mindset, if I really wasn't truly going after it, I would quit. Maybe your goal is to run a triathlon, run a half Ironman or a full Ironman. That takes some serious dedication. I should know. I've done 3 half Ironmans. There's that stupid thumbs up again. I wonder if I can turn that off. But you wouldn't just go out and say, hey, I'm going to run a half Ironman and then train for 6 weeks and go do a half Ironman. I don't care how good of an athlete you are. Chances are you're not going to finish it. But what you could do is say, I want to run a half Ironman. And you start training for 6 to 8 weeks. It is so dry. I don't understand why my throat's so dry. You start training for 6 to 8 weeks. Let's just say week 10, you do a sprint triathlon or a super sprint. So a sprint or a super sprint, you're talking about a 250 to 500 meter swim, 10 to 12 mile bike ride, and a 5K. You can do that on 6 to 8 weeks of training. You could. If you were serious about it and you actually went out and trained, you could do it in 6 to 8 weeks. Now, you may not place, but you'll cross the finish line and you'll be able to feel proud about that. Now, what you do from that, that's that first chunk, right? Then you say, okay, in 3 months, I'm going to do an Olympic distance. Excuse me. Olympic distances are almost double what a sprint is. You're talking, oh gosh, what is it? I don't remember. Is it 1,000-yard swim? I think it's 1,000 yards, and then it's a 20K bike and a 10K run. I think those numbers are right. I have not done an Olympic triathlon since 2015. I think 2015 was my last Olympic distance race. So the numbers may be wrong. And then you do that race, and you're doing all of this to build up to that half Ironman, right? So you're 6 months in, 6 to 7 months in, you've done your Olympic distance race. Now you're making that final push for the half Ironman. So let's just say if you've never trained before, I would give yourself at least a year to do a full half or to do a half Ironman. If you have trained, you're in reasonably good shape, and you swimming's the big one. Swimming will get you every time. If you're a heavy swimmer like me, where you swim like a boat anchor, you need at least a year. If you already, let's say you swim on a regular basis, or you swam maybe in high school, you could probably do all right with it, with training with doing it in a year. I know for me, if I decide to go back and do a half Ironman, I would give myself at least 18 months because I swim like a boat anchor. So, and I had to get a new bike, but that's just because I'm a gearhead. I like nice things. I like the triathlon bikes. I like all that fun stuff. Anyway, so yeah, so you see now you're 7 to 8 months in, 6 to 7 months in, you've done your Olympic. Now you make that big push to your half Ironman. Now you have taken that big goal of I'm going to do a half Ironman, and you've broken it down into bite-sized chunks that are attainable, and you've given yourself the best chance to win. You've proven that you can train all the way up to doing the different things. You have given yourself the best chance to win, and you're most likely going to succeed. So this thing never shows me how long I've been talking for, but that's really, when it comes to goal setting, the bite-sized goals, realistic goals. And again, remember, I'm not telling you to not dream big and not do something huge. But what I'm telling you is, if you want to do something huge, give yourself the best chance to win by doing the smaller bite-sized chunks first. That way it's attainable. And that way, as you get closer to your big goal, those smaller setbacks don't affect you as much. Because let's say let's go back to doing the triathlon training. Let's say you get injured, you go out for a run, you twist your ankle, now you're out for a little bit. Well, that's definitely suboptimal, right? But you can still swim. You can tape your ankle up and swim, or you can use a pull buoy. That's PULL, not PO. Anyway, but now you're not. You've built up your endurance and your strength training and your mental toughness to be like, okay, I'm not going to let this derail me. You start figuring out ways to work around it, as opposed to if you were like, I'm just going to do a half Ironman and you sprain your ankle 6 weeks in. Like, well, there we go. I'm done. Sprain my ankle. Not supposed to do this. So I'm done. By giving yourself the time to lead up to it and hit these other mile markers first, setbacks don't set you back. You figure out ways to work around them and you press on. So yeah, another short episode today. Still working on getting some more guests. It is the holidays, so people are busy. But I really hope that in the new year, in the start of the first of the year, I guess, we'll be able to start getting some more guests on here and start hearing what other people, other spouses, other people that have transitioned out of the military, other active duty members, just anybody military connected that wants to get on and share their story, share things that are cool that they're doing. I hope to have them on here in this coming year because I would like to see the audience grow. I want to give you all the best product that I possibly can. I like getting people to tell their stories. It makes me happy to have other people tell their stories, and so I can share their triumphs and support them in their struggle if that's what they're going through. So anyway, thanks for listening. Really appreciate y'all tuning into the Professional Dependa. Don't forget to check out the shop in the bio for your Professional Dependa gear. Again, stickers, no hats, but we have shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, a couple different designs. Unsure if I want to shut the shop down at the first of the year or not. I was going to shut it down today in December, but I had a couple people ask me to keep it open because they wanted to buy some stuff. So I've kept it open for a little bit, and we're going to see how that runs. But check out the shop. Make sure you subscribe. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. That way we can keep this channel growing. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we'll check out later. Cheers.